This is the Websites.ca podcast, where we help Canadian small businesses build and maintain an effective website and online presence.
Hey everybody, Sean Corbett here, Websites.ca Marketing.
Hey everybody, Ryan Desmarais with Websites.ca Sales.
So today, Ryan and I wanted to talk about something that we basically call the Goldilocks Principle, or a question that we get asked a lot is, what is the right type of website for me? And what we mean by Goldilocks Principle is that tie into that old fairy tale where Goldilocks is in the bear's house, and she tries to eat the one porridge, it's too hot. She tries to eat the other porridge, it's too cold, and she wants to eat the porridge where the temperature is just right. So people start applying that to businesses and by extension to websites. And Ryan, I believe that you've seen both sides of the spectrum, haven't you? Where people are coming from a very cheap or free do-it-yourself scenario, and there's also people looking to downgrade from a very expensive custom scenario.
Absolutely. We've, doing this, me personally, I've been doing this 17 years, and we've seen a little bit of everything from all different sorts of businesses and industries. And yes, relating to the Goldilocks Principle, I find that there are kind of a wild scale between, the people that want something just at the bargain basement bottom dollar. And on the other end of the spectrum, people that want something really extravagant and extreme. And at Websites.ca, those are two things that we don't do, because our strength is really in offering that middle ground service that covers the needs of the average small business and does so at an affordable price.
And in the risk, the sort of to be transparent about it all, I think that we also believe that there are people who do fit into the extreme ends. And in that case, we would recommend they go for those other options, and have done that. I know I have, and I'm sure you have, Ryan, over the phone many times. When you hear someone telling you what they need and you say, frankly, you know what, I think you should go get a free website at Wix, right? Yep. Because if we're talking, so to define the lower end, the kind of what we call a too hot, too cold thing. Like on the one end, the do-it-yourself websites, Wix, GoDaddy, cheap plans, or when you get your cousin or nephew to build you a website in exchange for whatever, you bake them a pie or something. We've found that if someone's starting a brand new business, especially if it's a second business or a hobby business, or if they're an undiscovered artist or something like that. In other words, you have no revenue coming in whatsoever. You are just starting your business. Then in many cases, it might be a smart idea to go for the free solution, right? The website is not going to change the tenor of your business such that it's going to start bringing in a whole bunch of money unless you're completely digitally based. And even then, you're going to still have to hustle at the very beginning. Mm-hmm. So that would be an instance where we have told people, I think probably you should start here first. And then on the other high end of the spectrum, there's some people who do run a lot of their businesses online, and they need not just a shopping cart, like a Shopify for e-commerce, but they need a robust solution that ties into their point of sale and their CRM, and they have stock in different places, and they have to track all those kind of things. And they also do brick and mortar sales. They might need custom programming. They might need a special videos or interactive features and what have you. So obviously, there's going to be cases where you have to go to that. But what we've talked about for many years at Websites.ca is that a lot of these cases are outlier cases. And that's why we're trying to figure out, what is the rule set, what is the feature set, and what is the cost of having a sort of a just right website that applies to the majority of small businesses in Canada.
Great point, Sean, and I agree. Like, I've seen the both ends of the spectrum, and with being purely honest here too, we definitely wave the white flag, as I like to say, when we have to. If a project is too small or too large for us or too complex, if, like Sean mentioned, if you have a really process-based business and you want a website to simplify your processes and talk to 4 different CRM or software systems, those are awesome projects, but that's too large for Websites.ca. And on the flip side, if it's, you're just a business starting out and you have some time and expertise on your hands where you can build your own site, there are awesome do-it-yourself tools out there that are very inexpensive, close to free, or, $100 or $200 a year. These are options that we're not afraid to tell our customer that they're not a good fit for these reasons, and give them suggestions of saying, hey, you should look at, a system like Wix or Squarespace or GoDaddy for a DIY solution. And in being in business for this long, we do have some good contacts on the flip side, on the other side of the complex projects. If you need a custom programmer or you need custom design, we have some good contacts that we can refer you to. So we don't just try and fit everybody into our box to make our box bigger. We really want to help small businesses with the best solution for them.
And yes, and of course, it helped them with a self-assessment. And also, the most important thing to remember is that if you're asking yourself that question, what's the best type of website for me? It's time specific. So things will change, right? If the best website for you right now is no website and just having a free Facebook page and a free Google Maps listing or whatever, that's fine until it isn't, right? So your business will grow, and then maybe you ask yourself that question again in 2 years. Same deal with people on the higher end. If they thought they needed something, and I think, Ryan, we've seen this so often, is people
Yes.
will come with a big website project, right? I want it to do exactly and specifically this thing when this happens. And I want my form to do this kind of scheduling, and I want this kind of e-commerce. And then you think, well, okay, they must know their business better than we do. So you start to build it out, and they realize after a year, I never use any of this stuff, and my clients don't use any of this stuff. Or people we've talked to, for instance, people who used to be Yellow Pages customers, though they thought they needed all sorts of bells and whistles with marketing and back-end dashboards and da-da-da. And they look back after a year and they say, well, man, that didn't move the needle at all, except that I paid a lot for it.
Absolutely, Sean. I'm a huge fan of adages, and one adage that I like to reference is the old Field of Dreams quote: "If you build it, they will come." Does not apply to web design and web projects.
It applies to web design profits. It does not apply to web designers getting results for clients.
That's right.
So yes, we always try to caution against that, and so that I think it would help in this Goldilocks discussion again for your average small business owner. Over the years, we've agonized about this too internally, because one thing that a website company has to do is they have to grow with their market and they have to change as technology adapts. So we're always asking ourselves internally, should we add this feature? Should we expand this thing? Should we limit this other thing? And it's funny because you think, well, we just have to add, right? Because technology is always changing. But what we've found over the years is that every time we sort of added a new aspect to our service, for instance, we've expanded how we help with Google tools over the years. But we've also drawn back on some things. So we used to tell people, unlimited pages and unlimited edits, and we'll do this and this and this thing, and send us as many pictures as you have, and so on. Well, over time, we've realized that the use of websites has changed, and it's not really necessary to have 6,000 pictures in your photo gallery. In fact, it slows the website down. It involves that sort of paralysis by having too many inputs. Mm-hmm. And so, in a lot of cases, we might just recommend someone to use Instagram or Facebook to show off most of their pictures. That that platform is more suited to that type of thing. Mm-hmm. So a good website provider, when you're talking about how it fits a company, we're also looking at limiting the amount of bells and whistles that it has, because then it loses its effectiveness if it has sort of too much extra junk hanging off of it.
Completely agree with that. And when I talk to business owners, I'm a big fan of, the keep it simple method, the KISS method, as I'm sure we've all heard of before, keep it simple, stupid. And with an effective website, it's a good idea to, dangle the carrot a little bit with your leads and entice them into your website and give them just enough information to entice them. Because often, and I'm sure our listeners out there may have all seen websites where they try and, give you so much information all at once, all on one page, and it can be a little overwhelming. Our big advice is really try and scale that back, and give them an offer on your homepage to then lead them into the other pages of your website. And that doesn't mean your website has to just be one page or be ultra simplistic, but make it ultra simplistic for the visitor that first comes knocking at your door and opening your door. And then if they want to spend more time researching your product or your service, and your product needs that before somebody becomes a buyer. They need to learn more about it. Give them the ability to do that through the website, but don't try and, give that all to them as they just step through the front door. They
Yes.
want to taste some appetizers first before checking out the rest of the house.
And of course, a lot of people look to government sites or large corporate sites, and they think, well, they have the money and the research and all that, and the budget, so I just should do what they're doing. But it just doesn't apply to a small business, right? In many cases, these folks that have big budgets and big IT teams, it's actually a lot of waste and extravagance. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that a small business can copy them, and it doesn't become the just right Goldilocks fit when you start looking at these bigger companies. And that actually brings us to another topic, Ryan. You must have fielded a million questions over the years about design, right? So people will say, like for instance, we always tried to say there's a difference between kind of a copy and paste design versus, let's say, a design layout or a design template. Some people think that word template means very generic, but we don't think that it means that. And then on the other end of the spectrum, of course, why can't I have a custom design? Why can't my site look different than anyone else's site has ever looked? So you fielded those questions, and I wondered what would be your distilled answer to those questions.
I have fielded those questions, and my answer is this: when it comes to building something that's never been built before, that always that always intrigues me, because I think that that's an awesome idea. But when it comes down to putting, pen to paper or, keystrokes on the keyboard to program a website like that, it is so involved. There's so many elements that you have to think about when you're building a website of that nature. And especially in today's world, in 2020, where there's so many different ways people can access your website. It's a different story if this was back in 2005, when there was 2 or 3 different screen resolutions that people viewed websites on, and maybe 2 or 3 browsers. But now there's a dozen different browsers, different device sizes, resolutions, etc. That if you build this really unique one-off website that looks awesome on your designer screen and your screen, how does it look on a tablet or on a cell phone or on someone's Mac computer that hasn't been updated in 10 years? So this is why at websites.ca, we use that Goldilocks principle with design, where we want your website to look good on every device that that it can be viewed on, not just the most current up-to-date device out there.
And we use the word standardized rather than say canned or even template, because a set of standards gives you some limits and some boundaries that then you can work creatively within, but it also saves people a ton of time and money. They're not reinventing the wheel. And the other point I'd add to that, Ryan, is when people ask us for a totally unique website, I've had this request before. Someone said, well, I hate that the logo is always on the top left. I think we should have the logo on the bottom center or something like that. And I said, okay, yeah, but there's years and years and years of research into how people interact with their electronic devices and how people read in the West, left to right, and in what kind of patterns they scan a screen. So you're reinventing the wheel. You're paying your designer more money. The designer is under more stress because now he's literally inventing something from scratch instead of going based on his industry standards. Mm-hmm. And you're actually probably going to get a worse result. So this is where your customization, you're too clever by half, right? So you've missed the mark on the just right part because you wanted to avoid the I don't want to look like everyone else, which we also agree. You can't be too generic, obviously, right?
Right. 100%. Can't be too generic, but again, can't stray too far from the norm where someone loads up your website and goes, where am I? What am I looking at? Where is the contact page? Where is the menu? But like I said, that's always intrigued me with those kind of projects, especially when you're dealing in the creative fields, like artists or musicians. They're the ones that typically have more of that in them to build something really unique and different. But and there's a time and place for that. But, for the average small business, building something totally out of the box usually doesn't make sense.
Yes. And your message, your content, your offer, that's where you should focus on being creative. Not
exactly.
Not the drapes on the website.
Yeah. Or your logo placement or how large it is.
Yeah. So that kind of covers design. Now, a lot of these different website platforms and types of websites, they deal with updates and changes a little differently as well. And no, you've fielded a lot of questions around that as well, Ryan. So let's talk a little bit about the do-it-yourself model for doing updates,
Mm-hmm.
and then also how we sort of harmonize that, and then as it gets into the more expensive custom stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So with updates on the do-it-yourself side, it's hands-on, and it's if you have a change or an update to make on your website, it's on you. It's up to you to log in, update the website, make sure the update looks good, save the changes. And this is where a lot of small business people struggle, because if you have an active small business and you're actively helping and serving your customers and running your business day to day, often the website gets put on the back burner. It gets, at the end of the day, oh, I'll update this, I'll change that. Or, especially nowadays with the COVID situation, the COVID laws and rules are changing almost day to day, week to week. So it's a good idea to communicate that with your customers on your website. And on a DIY system, it's all in your lap to do. And if you have the time to manage it, great, because it's cheaper. But in the Goldilocks offer that we have is our customers can just call us or email us when they have an update, whatever the update is, communicate the update to us, leave it with us for 1 to 2 business days. We reply back and your update's done. And then on the other end of the spectrum of, really costly projects, especially if you've got a custom design, you may have to go back to your web developer to get your updates done. And you may be paying each time you want to see a change happen. And it may take, obviously depending on the developer, but it may take, a week or so, maybe sometimes longer, to get an update done on that more complex system.
Well, I have a funny story about that. Actually, I have a client who couldn't come to websites.ca because his needs were far too complex, and they actually have a back end to their website. So there has to be a whole custom programmed and maintained secure back end. They do work with lawyers' offices and so on, and court paper filing. So you can imagine, right, that can't be out of the box type of thing.
Yeah,
right.
Makes sense.
But the skin on the front of their website is built on a WYSIWYG kind of easy content editing type of thing. And then it interacts with the back end. They have been working, I kid you not, for over a year to make a couple of changes to their website. Now, the funny part of the story in the meantime is that, well, they know me. I do other work. I do some writing work for them. And they said, well, you work with a website company, right? You do updates to websites. I said, yes, but you guys are a little above, what they specialize in. Mm-hmm. I said, no, but in the meantime, we haven't even been able to update a word on our website. So we started digging around on their site, and I started helping them do sort of little one-off updates. But the issue was that the completely competent programmer that they're with right now, he's just not geared towards little updates like that. He's geared towards, sit down, make a plan, have 6 meetings, do a wireframe. I'm going to change the code, which is required for this kind of work he does. But he doesn't even think of offering the service, I'll help you with minor updates. And if he does, I imagine he charges them at the same rate that he charges for his custom work. So there's just an interesting example of, in the meantime, they have to get someone to go in and do updates. So yeah, I mean, people need to think about that when they're going to the custom solution. The question would be, you might want to talk to your provider about splitting up what kind of work means what kind of work costs what. Do we have the ability to go in and edit ourselves? Because what Ryan just talked about with the do-it-yourself sites is that a lot of people will not have the time, or they'll forget to do it. But what we think is the sort of the just right, the really good fit, is having both options. We think that you should have a support team around you to do most of your updates, but you should also have the ability, and I might add, a simply and up-to-date sort of maintained site so that you can do it, so you can go in yourself and do updates with very little pain. So we're looking for that flexibility for small businesses, right? Some small businesses like to edit little things every day, pictures and prices and notices, and then they appreciate having a team around them who helps them with the more technical stuff and the ongoing upkeep.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that point, Sean, because again, finding that Goldilocks principle, I often get asked from from leads, conversations that I have with potential new projects is, how does updates work? After the site's built and live, how does it work? I send the changes to you? Do I do them myself? How does that all break down? And I love answering that question because really it's a best of both worlds approach. What I mean by that is if you prefer to call us or email us, you send over your change to us, leave it with us for a business day or two, it gets done. But if you want to make changes yourself, because many of our clients are very hands-on and technically savvy, so if you want to make changes yourself, we don't limit your access. You don't have to send your changes to us and wait a day or two. You can log into your website yourself and process updates and changes all on your own. So a little bit of a best of both worlds approach when it comes to editing and updates.
Totally. And to finish our previous point too about the whole do-it-yourself stuff, I would encourage people, if like what Ryan said, if there's going to be changes, you'd probably want a team to help you. If it's really true that you need some kind of online brochure up, basically, right? The website's just functioning as a brochure, and your information and your company never changes. The technology never changes. Your products never change. And I mean, I can't think on the top of my head what that would apply to, but we have talked to people that have basically told us that's the way their industry works. Mm-hmm. Then I think, yeah, you are okay getting your cousin to do it for free as a favor. And then it never, ever gets changed again. You get that one freebie website set up and you pay for your domain and you pay for your hosting and you are good. That's just that we've met a lot of people who thought they were in that position. And then they realized, boy, with free, I sure have to wait a long time. Boy, with this do-it-yourself stuff where I get to people helping me out and doing me favors, wow, it sure takes a long time to ever get done. And I feel kind of bad following up with them because they are doing it for free after all.
Right. Exactly. And when that free service applies to, for example, your business email, which I've seen happen a couple of times, and then your business email goes down and it's, a friend of the family that helped set it up and they're not, on vacation somewhere and they're the only person that can help you resolve that issue, that's when things get a little tricky and sticky.
Yeah. And so that's a good dividing line is that, once you have a serious ongoing business that is profitable, you do need to look to start paying for some level of security and some mm-hmm. level of ease of use and all that kind of thing. And that's when you have to start looking to bump up. And to tie up this conversation around, I kind of like to bring it to an interesting but not talked about that often concept, because I think most of the people who listen to us, they already have a website. Right. So maybe this applies to somebody who doesn't have a website yet. It also might apply to somebody who's looking to completely revamp their online presence. And finally, it might apply to somebody who's starting a second business or a side hustle, but they are starting to see some success with it. Is just not many people talk about the process of actually putting together and launching your initial site. And I know we've also tried to find a kind of Goldilocks just right principle for that. And I'll tee you up here and then I'll let you talk about it because I know you're an expert in this. What we found people struggled with is one of two things. They either struggle with compiling any content whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So I think on that end, one needs to have a set of standards to say, what is the minimum amount of content that one should launch on a website? Yep. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we've seen I have a bajillion ideas and just wait another week. I'm going to get them all down on paper. Oh, wait, just wait another month. I got to take new pictures. Oh, you know what? The weather's not good outside. Just wait another 2 months. Oh, you know what? I have more new ideas now. Oh, you know what? My cousin and their sister and my business partner weighed in with some ideas. So then we find the website never gets launched. And if it does, it needs to be launched as 1,000 pages, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe you could just talk around your experiences with the minimum viable product of launching a new website.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned this because we've been doing this a long time and have found, I think we found a good Goldilocks, a good just right process for getting a website launched for a new business. And as you said, it's kind of the minimum values that we need to get a website launched. And the way I describe this to my customers now is for a new website project that comes into websites.ca's door, what we want to do is get you a website as quickly as humanly possible so that you have so you can start to build your online presence and online exposure. So we have a process where we're going to build your website in phases is effectively how we look at it. So instead of compiling all this content and information, look, your website at its core is really a business card or a brochure for your business online. So any website should fundamentally answer three questions about your business. Who are you? What do you do? And how do people get in touch with you? So if you are a business that has no website and you want to get a website set up, we want to build you a nice looking one-page website to answer those three questions. Who are you? What do you do? How do people get in touch with you? Once we have that built and live, then we shift gears into, okay, now we've got that foundation built. We've poured the foundation of your website. Now let's add the house on top of it. So after the foundation is built, let's add in your services page that talks about the three different services you offer. Let's add in that photo gallery of your shop if you have a retail shop. Let's put in some customer testimonials from happy customers you have. So we're really big fans of this phased approach because, as Sean mentioned, we've been doing this a long time, with projects that can sometimes drag on for months, if not years. And we find by doing this phased approach of building your foundation first. Let's get a website. And this foundation, by the way, we can build and launch within 30 days. Within a month, you could have your business online with a domain name and your logo and your name up in lights. And then we can build onto your website as we go. And we've had such great feedback from our customers from this process because it doesn't ask them to sit down and provide us, all the website information all at once. It can be overwhelming to try and think about that, especially if you're an established business or your product or service is really complicated or there's lots of moving pieces with it. So this is our Goldilocks approach is let's build it in phases. Rome wasn't built in a day.
And it's so important to highlight what Ryan was saying there is the foundation gets launched. That site goes live. So now you have a one-page site live, and it just terrifies people sometimes. We didn't talk about everything. And you say, okay, well, what else do you want to talk about? And then they just freeze. I don't know. I'm busy. Call me next week. I'm like, all right, perfect. I'm so glad we launched the website because that was not going to get done. And then the other part of it too, that's so fascinating when you do it this way, and that is why we call it the Goldilocks way too, is that you're giving your customers and your team, if you do have staff, you're giving them a chance to actually tell you what really matters. You would be so surprised when a web designer and an owner of a business sit down to talk about what matters, what tangents they go off on, probably based on, what the owner was thinking about that day, what problems came up that week. Once a website is launched with this foundational approach, and then you actually have a good provider like what websites.ca does so that you can reach out to them, you can get updates done quickly and easily, and they're done for you, and it's included in your package so you're not kind of getting nickel and dime to death, is that now you've given your business and your customers a chance to tell you what's important, right? It's like what did you say, right? The services page, FAQ, gallery, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. People might find out a month after they launch that they'll send people to their website and their customers will come back and say, well, that's all well and good, but I need this other question answered. And now they go, aha, okay, that's the next page on our site. The next page on our site has to answer this question. It has to show these specs. It has to do this thing. Now you're actually responding to what your market wants. Now your website is flexible to the needs of your audience instead of people just kind of taking a guess in the dark.
And what's better? Someone plugging in your business name on Google and finding nothing, or maybe just some, business directory listings and, a link to your Facebook page, or them finding your domain, yourbusiness.com, with a website that has your logo, your contact information up in lights. That having your website there shows that, these guys are a real business. They're a professional business. They take themselves seriously. Here's their website, even if it's just that one-page site to start. Because like Sean said, that may say, your website's a good start, but I'm looking for the answer to this question. How much is this item? Or what's the deal with this service? And that can easily lead you down the path of what's most important to tackle next on your website. So this phased approach, I think, is really ties into the Goldilocks principle of just right. Instead of rushing and doing something really basic, or just having a web page that says coming soon, or spinning your wheels and taking 6 months or a year to build your site, build it in phases. Pour that foundation first, add on your layers on top of that.
Yeah, and it brings to bear the best of both worlds. You get a very affordable, almost cost comparable site to the do-it-yourselfers, but
Mhm.
you have the edifice, that security, and that team in place for when you're ready to grow, and they're going to guide you to grow into a much more professional and well put together website, almost immediately. The people are on deck, so you're not kind of splitting it up like, I got the site built and the process sucked and I didn't like doing it myself and I wasted a weekend and the site kind of looks like garbagey and non-professional and now I'm bitter about it, but I also don't want to spend any more money and time doing it. Right?
Right.
We've heard a lot of that on the low end, like a little scab that they just pick at for years and years and years because it never
Right.
really gets healed. And then, yeah, exactly like what you just said, Ryan. On the high end, we're not grinding our business to a halt. Like that example I gave you guys earlier. Luckily, they're a fully profitable and functional business that never once stopped just because their new website was in construction. They kept their old website online, but it just shocks me to see well, even your response, right? Like over a year just to finish this website project, and that's I got to clarify. I'm not blaming the provider. Like my buddy who runs that business, he's just too busy to sit down and answer the questions that they have for his custom
Mhm.
site, so it just never gets done.
Yep.
Is there anything else you'd like to add? Anything maybe we didn't cover or common questions that come up when people are asking us to compare to all the various website types out there?
Just trying to think. I mean, from a pricing perspective too, I think we hit that Goldilocks area. Looking at our competitors and what some of them charge, and comparing it to the low cost DIY options. I think we hit that just right spot pretty well. But beyond that, Sean, there's nothing else I can think about to add to the topic.
No, perfect. Well, I appreciate you chatting about it. And one thing that we don't really often mention around here, because most of what we do, like I say, is taking people's existing sites, or that they're either not happy with their website or they're not happy with their provider, and we help them switch over to our platform.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that Ryan already mentioned on this call is that we do have a solution for people who don't have a site at all, and it is a one-page website where there's no cost to design and build it. The only cost is in the maintenance, the ongoing security, the support team to help you. The cost you'd pay anyway for domain and emails and hosting and so on. So that doesn't even have to be a barrier for people. If you're at all making a profit with your business and you do want an online presence, we do have a service that helps you build a new website from scratch. And we do it simply. It's one page. We answer those questions Ryan talked about, and we get you online as fast as possible without no mucking about.
That's it.
If you're not satisfied with your current website or the service you get from your provider, you can switch to websites.ca for free and get a great support team behind you. Just visit business.websites.ca. That's BUSINESS.websites.ca, or email Ryan directly at RYAN@websites.ca.
Thanks for listening, guys. Catch you next time.